Tuesday, Marcus, Patricia, Louise, is that Rhonda's job or Rhonda's job? How do you say that? Rhonda's job. Okay. Rhonda's job and Rhonda. And for Thursday, I have Eric, Shopping, Shopping, Joseph, Jeff, and Chris. That's good for you guys. And that's based upon everything I got in. Those 2 times are available for everybody that I know about. So happens you can switch back and forth because I know at times there are conflicts that come up. So I try to come up ahead because I really don't want to teach this class a third time during the day. It's a lot of fun. I think you guys are going to really enjoy the last part of this class because you get those lasers, machine tools, and things like that. So it has been. I have contact with a lot of the previous students from this course, and they say it's one of the best courses they took, and the things that they learned in the lab have been very helpful to them. Some of them even told me I had to pull out my notebook and journal because some information I needed and it helped me to work through something. So that's, I consider that a compliment. We've actually done something that somebody uses later in life. It's not just the activity of working your brain. This time, or these times, I want to ask the first: is there any conflict that has changed since I've got your schedule? Anybody have a conflict that's changed since then?
You said 9:30 to 12:30.
9:30 to 12:30. Usually, it doesn't run all the way to 12:30. 1 or 2 may, but there's actually only going to be. If you look at the schedule, there's only about 8 classes where we actually meet during the lab time. The other 2 times it'll be for a test, and then on those times you can set up any time you want to during the week to take the test. And then one of those times, as a group, you'll be doing labs, so I don't have to be there. So you can set up some other time then too. So really, critical is 7 times in a semester that we're going to be meeting all the time. So again, it's not a every week type thing because hopefully, if everything goes straight, we'll be finished by the 2nd week in April. And I know you're all in favor of that, so we don't have to worry about it until after your exams. If somebody wants some extra labs, I'll be willing to step right in there and try to help you learn some more things. Anyway, any other questions?
Yes, we meet at the monitoring.
Yes, I'm going to take you down later, hopefully at the end of this class, and we will be able to do that. Now, this screen is absolutely horrible. Where you can see it now. Memorize these icons. Find it. going to give you a syllabus for last year. Might not be exactly the same as I sent to you in the email, if you can remember it. This is the same as Spring 2012, pretty close to it, but to give you a practical background in machine tool metrology, now that involves a lot of things. Understanding the machine, understanding how the machine moves, modeling the machine, measuring the machine, and so it sounds simple. It is simple, but it's detailed. Simple but detailed. And you can read through this in your own time. So the important thing is going to be about our laboratory journal. And the test that I will give for the laboratory part of this is based upon your journal. And it can't be a simpler test that the information on the test you can take from your journal. And the journal is your record, and you'll be using it on in the laboratory. And I do have one caveat, is that it must be in your journal. So I'm forcing you to learn to write down what you do in a lab. This is not a lab report. I don't want it to be a lab report. It can be. I'm not concerned about how messy or how presented, and I don't want there to be certain categories of things that you're trying to write out for a lab report. What I want is you to be able to communicate what you're doing. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit, but if you have a lab journal, somebody else ought to be able to follow it. If you just stick a bunch of graphs in there, that's not a lab journal. It should be something that you could take to court if you had a patent suit, or do something good enough. They could look through that and say, okay, I know that this guy developed this at this date and time, and it can be defendable. So the reason for that is it will actually help you. You develop these, you get these few disciplines in writing a journal, it will speed up your time to graduation. Because when you go to write a thesis, or your master's, or your PhD, if the information is readily at hand, it's easy to flow through with writing. And what often will happen is, whoever's doing it will remember it. It says, I remember this, but after about a year, they forget. They don't remember what they did in the research. And so tracing things back down through spreadsheets and programs is difficult to do. You want to know not just what you did, but why you did it. Because a lot of things don't work when you're doing research. When you know why you chose the one that you did, you can defend it in a thesis or a dissertation. And that's important to be able to defend what choices you made. Even if they're wrong, at least you can defend them. Okay, it's important that you be able to defend it. The committee looks at that. As long as you have reasons to defend what you did, then you're usually pretty good. Even if somebody disagrees, they tend to let things go that are defendable. But if you can say, I don't know why I did it, maybe a little bit more work. Improve your graduation time. But I want to go through talk about the lectures. The lectures will be derived from the material taken from something called the Machine Tool Task Force Study, the D5.54 standard, the 5.57 standard, and other materials. The subjects will include rigid body schematics, error combination and compensation, error sources, instrumentation, and error budgeting. The course will end with a detailed presentation of the case study. This case study is probably the large office diamond printing machine. Now it will be changed, I think it's It's designed by Steve Patterson and Robert Donaldson. Comprehensive class will go through the machine design at the conceptual level and then through the trials performed on this machine in order to do software correctly. Now, our topic is diamond printing machine was a machine used to create huge topics. I don't know if they used it on the trouble mirror or not.
I don't think so.
I think they did diamond duty number 3 and 3. It's a large, it's kept in a very temperature-controlled room, and the errors on the surface that it makes, definitely sub-micrometer, but probably into the nanometer error. So that's what he will end up with. I emailed you PDF of these PowerPoints so that you would know that writing all the, I'd rather you listen to me and ask questions. And I'll tell you the same thing in lab. If you have a question, please interrupt me and ask a question. It's important to follow through what's going on. And of course, I guess I should mention, didn't think about that much of you know, that I am not Bob Hawkins. Okay, just so let most of you know that I'm not Bob Hawkins, I am Jimmy Miller. Professor Hawkins is in Singapore this week, and a couple of times, 3 times each year when he goes off somewhere. But I will be teaching the lab part of this course, and he teaches the lecture part of this course, and so together, you guys are going to get, I think, a fun experience. Particularly if you're not late. You can do some things. And I've had students in class present me with alternatives for their work in their course in the lab course, and I said, sure, do this. And I know that if they do that, then they'll get the same education as if they were in the course. So if you have something in a project that you're working on that you think would be beneficial, then I may let you do that. The goal is, I want to know that you understand machine tool methodology when you get out of this class. And it's not, to start with, I'm going to repeat myself in many ways, several times, both when I'm giving lectures and when I'm in the laboratory. Don't worry about that. I do it for a purpose. Sometimes the first time through and the second time through, it's hard to understand. But as we go on, when we get into the matrices, the modeling of this machine that we're going to work on, it's important that you understand. And my class over, I want to make sure that you can go out into industry and somebody asks you, can you make a model of this machine that we're designing? You can say, sure, that's no problem. And once we do that, you need to give me an error budget. You need to give me an uncertainty of what my machine will be if given certain parameters and the components of it. And it won't be difficult for you, but I think you can probably do it coming out of this class. So, our journal. I say it's a conversant description of your activities in the laboratory. In other words, it's like talking. Now, it may be like talking to yourself. I don't think anybody is saying unless they're talking to themselves. They spend time talking to themselves. Have you ever talked to yourself and said, why did you do that for? And that's why I keep laughing at it. These are not undergraduate style reports. They're a record of work in a laboratory environment. They should be complete enough that someone else who doesn't know you or anything about the project can follow what has been done. Now, that doesn't mean they have no knowledge of the material. You've got to expect that if somebody's looking at this journal, they have a knowledge of what they're working on the project. Some basic knowledge of what they're working on the journal. Use narrative. Generally write in full sentences. I am going to do this. This is the data that I got. The data that I took is found in file. The file name is. If you have a journal that's just got things scribbled in it, this is from experience. I know that you'll forget what those scribbles mean. Now you know what they mean when you scribble them down, but later you don't know. Okay, the following are not meant to be sections, but things included in the narrative of the work. In other words, these things are going to be in your notebook. They should be there. The first thing is each page should be signed and dated by the researcher. Excuse me. That means that, look and see for number 2. Okay, each page needs to be number 2. Now, the type of notebook that you have should be a bound notebook. This is not satisfactory. Although it's spiral bound, I want something that is sewn. It is a solid notebook, one that you don't tear the pages out of, one that has the pages numbered front and back from 1 to the end of the book. Number them in ink. And the purpose of that is so that you don't tear pages out of your journal and you can't insert pages into your journal. And so that's critical for a laboratory style journal or notebook that you're keeping. And the journals that you get, the little books that you get in the bookstore that are sewn together down the binding, if you have any questions, come by my office and I'll show you exactly what I mean. I meant to bring one here and I forgot to. It can be lined like a normal ruled paper. It can be a quadrille notebook. It doesn't matter as long as it's a solid notebook, not spiral bound. Something like this is bound. This is too expensive for you. I don't want to expect you to buy one of these. But it's a solid binding in there that you don't generally rip the pages out of. Now this one has the pages numbered for you. Now this would probably cost $30, whereas you can buy for $2 or $3. You can buy one in the bookstore and you can number the pages yourself. Pretty good exchange, if you ask me. Okay, the signature, the reviewer, and date. In a real journal, if you have something important, somebody's going to look it over and sign it and say they understand what you did. Because it's important. Here, I don't consider that important, although I will be going through your journal for a rate. No unattached pages. Now, you're going to make some graphs for this course. Right? You're going to take data, raw data, you're going to process that data, analyze it, and you're going to make graphs. Now, take some in your notebook. You can shrink them, make them smaller. Don't make full-page ones because that makes a mess in your notebook just in general. And no unattached pages, please. Sometimes I'll take the notebook, this one probably, I can take it and shake it like that. So that's how out. See? Just like this. Anyway, there was something in there. Probably marking the page for me. But this is a journal that I kept for a particular project. I'm going to show you one of that. What do you have in this journal? The descriptions of your work. A model. It's generally a mathematical and physical model. It's what is happening in my system. Now, physical relationships used for the basis of the experiment. I expect it to perform in this way. If I change the temperature, the resistance goes up or down. The resistance goes up. And so you'll have symbols that will represent things. The scale, coefficient of thermal expansion of a scale on a machine, for example. Quite often you just use the term alpha, or alpha sub s for a particular alpha x, s for the x scale, for alpha y s for the y scale. So you have symbols that they need to be defined clearly and unambiguously. Now, for a particular machine tool, the one that we have downstairs, it actually has 4 different scales on it. Now, as it turns out, they're all made of the same material, glass, but in many situations, you may have a ball screw providing the symbol coefficient with an encoder on it. So another one may be glass, so depending upon your axes, it may change. So you have to be very specific about your symbols. You need to state the parameters being investigated. I know this, and this, but what's uncontrolled? What's related? You need to have temperature, pressure, humidity, and other materials parameters like the coefficient of expansion. And as you go from procedure to procedure, you need to state the purpose, including why am I doing this? Why do I care? What do I want to get when I get through with this? And if your model is well built, you can say, if I know this, and this, and I control this parameter, I'm going to get the unknown parameter. So that's, you're working your way systematically through a model to determine a particular parameter. Oh, by the way, references to other materials, standards, instruction manuals may be included to minimize writing. In other words, if there's something else, a description of something that's given in a book somewhere else, reference the book. You don't have to put everything in there. As long as the book is referenced, and that's fine with me. Any reference counts as a source. And if I'm given a test and you quote a reference, usually I'll know if it's in the reference or not. But as long as it's in the reference, I'm fine. I just want you to learn to be able to do this thing systematically, starting at one point, starting at a model, work your way to the measurements. That's what I'm interested in. Defining the investigation. And you have to say, okay, what parameters are you trying to determine? Now, I'm giving an example here, it's rather verbose, but you can read through it. For example, we will be determining the displacement errors throughout a specified working volume of the VMC 45, that's a particular machine. That is the errors from nominal of the tip of the tool with respect to the table of the VMC 45. The machine's program coordinates will determine the nominal positions within a defined regular coordinate system. So we're going to define coordinate systems, and it talks about the program coordinates for the machine tool. In the machine tool, you use what are called G-codes. How many of you worked with G-codes before? No joke. It's okay, it doesn't matter. I just wondered, the G-codes are like, it will tell your machine to move a particular way. And it doesn't matter if you don't know them, you're going to learn them in class, and only enough to do in class, so it's not difficult. But you will be able to operate the machine and be required to operate the machine. It's not hard. It's simple things, and quite often, the purpose of a laboratory is to familiarize you with certain aspects of doing the work. And in this case, I'm not looking for perfection. I'm looking for general ability. And I think everybody in here should be able to handle it without any problem at all. It's something new that you're going to learn. Okay, equipment use. If you're actually doing experiments on something, you want to know the model, the make, and the manufacturer, the serial number and date of the manufacturer, whatever you're working on. And all this is true for that machine that we're working on. And quite often we've had a call for repairs. We call up the company. I say, I've got this machine tool that's doing strange things, and they'll say, okay, what is the serial number? Now, you say, why would they be concerned with what serial number is? Why do they care? Because when you manufacture a machine, every machine is unique. More they cost. Every machine is unique, so there's a different set of blueprints depending upon which serial number you have. And not only that, if you're working for a company like Caterpillar, they may have 20 machines exactly the same down an aisle. I say exactly the same, the same, not exact. You can tell them apart. But the serial numbers will distinguish those machines from one another. So that's why you put serial numbers in. You need to record what instrumentation you use, model, manufacturer, operator. The reason you do this is you're doing metrology. In a real world, you're supposed to check that metrology against some standard every so often to keep your certification up. Now, if something has happened to that equipment and it's no longer working well, you need to be able to trace that piece of equipment back to every other measurement that is made. For example, if it's calibrated in January, and come July, I'm starting getting strange results out of it. Somewhere between January and July, there's an error. And so, actually, everything that's been tested between January and July can be suspect. Now, usually it just shows up quickly, you know what's happening. But you can say, okay, I need to go back, and maybe we've made a mistake somewhere along the line. Where is this machine located? As an example, the setup description, how is this machine set up? What's the state of the machine? What are the procedures followed? Each action is important. Sometimes diagrams and flow charts are included. For example, when we're doing our metrology using lasers, I'm going to give you a procedure to go through and how to align these lasers. And if you follow the procedure, it comes through very quickly. I can do all the alignments for all of the setups, one after the other, probably well within a half an hour. Probably within 15 minutes I could set them all up. But I've done it for a while because I follow this same procedure every time. Now, for you guys, you're going to have to, once you use this instrumentation, you're going to have to demonstrate to me that you know what you're doing. And so that means each one of you individually will stand before me without anybody else around, but you can have your notebook. You're going to have your notebook. And you're going to show me that you can do it. Okay. So that's important for like a flow chart. You know, you go through these steps. If you're still not right, go back to step 4. Measurement data. Record the measurement of related parameters or location. You need to have a name of the computer data file. What is all the data? You know, when you go back after 6 months or a year, you try to find data, and you think you've got 6 files, all named data. Okay. Data 1, data 2, data 3, and data 4. Okay, that's you'll find out that doesn't work very well. And so, generally, you put these into a journal. I'm going to pass this around in a minute. include graphs of data, investigative relationships, reference the graphs in the text. In other words, the graph down at the bottom is a graph of temperature versus resistance. Error versus time, who knows? And illustrate noting the observable trends. Refer to data acquisition programs by name and location. You know, if somebody wants to go back, you know, they want to take, particularly if you write any data, you need software program. And sometimes you'll find this that one student will pass on his information to another student, to another student, to another student, and you're looking for files, and you know, it says, I wrote a program. That doesn't work. I wrote the program, and later on it will say, I modified the program. It will tell you what your parameters in the program are. So, CNC machine programs, they have numbers for our case. You need to record the raw data files, locations, and where's the raw data, and where is the analyzed data. Now, you've got a file of the raw data. You take that, usually read it into some kind of spreadsheet or put it in a MATLAB, and then you have a process data. So you've got the raw file, the process, and the analyzed data. And so technically, you've got three different information there. You've got a file with the raw data. You might have a MATLAB code or an Excel program to analyze it, and then you have some output data. Be alert to all you can, including things other than specific details of the work performed. You know, you see outside this window, there is a big hole being dug. Now, in the course of digging that hole, they blew up some rocks. Now, some of our equipment, if there is a pulse that goes through a vibration, it can mess your data up. There can be a lot of things that can cause things like that. So, and we can, I've been standing in the lab before, and I feel the earth move. And so, that's it. You know, you say, well, I think I want to go back and take the data again. I'm not sure. You know, you usually have outliers in the data series. So you look at your surroundings. For example, if you're working in the lab and it starts getting real hot, you think that can affect your data? Definitely. Probably. So you look at that. Noticeable vibrations, interruptions, changes to original procedures, difficulties. Now, one of the labs, Jeff's lab, Jeff Alvin's lab here, he worked in, there used to be a very large airborne noise in that room. You were in there once when that, before they fixed it.
I never actually paid attention to it.
You did?
I drive it out of the time.
Yeah. There used to be a very large, it was, actually at 7 hertz, it was about 90 decibels. That's pretty high from what decibels are. Down at 7 hertz, you don't notice a lot, but you sure do feel it. And they just recently fixed that after 5 years. It took them 5 years to fix it. And they replaced 2 big fans in the basement with 24 fans. I think it's 24. More than that. I think it's 24. So they replaced it and they got rid of that noise. Noticeably different when you feel it. And so they've improved the lab condition. And I hate to say it, probably took more than $500,000 to do that. Probably close to $1 million. It probably took about $300,000 to replace it. But the other work they did on the way to replace it to try to fix all the errors was probably closer to $1 million. And you know, you say, wow, that's a lot. The builder would take most of it. So anyway, you've got to keep a notice of what's going on around you. Listen, be aware, look, things you can feel. Actually, it could be smells in the air. There's some, for taking laser measurements, there's the humidity, temperature, and the pressure of the air all matter. And actually, so CO2 is an air effect precision measurement. But all these things matter, and so actually we will record these. Anyway, so data analysis. First conclusion. Reference the equations in the theory. If you're trying to analyze data, you take your model, you take your input, and you solve for what you're looking for. And so there's the equations in the theory. And from that, you should be able to get what you're looking for. And write statements containing what you think the analysis reveals and the logic behind the conclusion. And write the interesting observations. Okay. If you think of, at the same time, if you're doing experimental work, your best creative time is actually while you're taking the data. You're thinking, I could do this, this setup, how I could change my setup to make it better. You'll come up with a lot of good ideas. And you may not use them in this setup, but when you're working on things in the future, trying to improve things, it helps. It makes you think about it. Okay, referencing information within the journal. I'm going to pass this around. And this is a journal that I started. One of our students built what is known as the subatomic measuring machine. And after he left, I took over the running of it. And actually I'm on my third notebook. I have two lab notebooks. And this is a time, this took about 3 months of my time. This took another probably 6 months or something like that of work that I did. And I wasn't even working on the project. I'm just being like the guy that gets the baton passed to pass it on to somebody else, to be able to pass it on to somebody else. But here's some notes that I took. I'm just going to pass this one around. It's probably the better one. I get lazy sometimes too. So I'm going to pass that notebook around. You'll see that some of the pages will have references in there. It's a double number measurement. We'll refer to a page and a line number on that page where that information is found. And as you look through that, that's a pretty good example of a notebook. And I wouldn't be the first to admit that it could be better. And that was not my primary job at the time, but I did try to take good notes of where I could find information and what I was doing. And in some places in that notebook, you'll see the whole page, an ink line going through the whole page. You can still read it, but it lets me know that those model or calculation that I made on that page were incorrect. And if you make a mistake, you don't just rip the pages out of your notebook. You leave your mistakes in there. And it's okay. It's the same thing for class. I'm not concerned that your notebook is really neat and pretty. I want to know, can I follow it? And can someone else follow it to get to the correct answers? Even if it's wrong things in there, as long as you know that they're incorrect, and maybe why it's incorrect, that it will save you later on. And because usually in theses that you read or dissertations, people don't tell you all the stuff that they did was wrong. But in a journal, a lab journal, sometimes the best ones admit when they did something wrong and why it was wrong. So don't be too proud to write down something that was incorrect. Now this is the system that I use. I label things in the margin so that I can find them and I can refer to them easily. And that just makes it really easy for me to get to attachments. Sometimes I put emails in there. I'm discussing something with somebody that's of importance. I'll print out the email and I'll actually take it into my journal. And this information to other people later. If it's formal, I will actually sign. I will take my, for example, if I've got my graph in here like this, if I've got the whole thing here, I will actually take it and I will write the paper and I will initial it across the page and the graph. And then I'll tape it. And that way, it gives further evidence that that has not been altered. And on that date that I did that and I signed it, initialed it, that means that I did it on that date. And if I have to take that back out, it will show up because you can never get your name to line up again. Anyway, okay, for class. Now, I know Greg Caskey, if you've had his course, how many of you took Greg's was in the lab with Greg Caskey last semester? He will not let, he says, do all your work in class. I'm a little more lenient than that. I let people take notes in class sometimes and write in a journal later. Keep 2 journals of it. If you do that way, keep 2 journals. And I understand that sometimes you want to make it a little more polished. the truth of the matter is, I've had people do that, and almost always, when they're transferring from one journal to the next journal, they're going to leave something out. And then when I ask them it on the test, they'll say, that's in my other journal. And it happens often, believe me. And they say, I didn't think it was important. So, the idea is, if it's in the first journal, it better be in the second one too. But I will also tell you that it will save you a lot of time not to worry about it. I'm not looking for neatness, and I told you that. As long as this thing's sequential, you can refer to page numbers in there. It's not, it's not going to make a difference in your grade if it's not neat. Only that I can find, you can find the information that we're looking for. So keep that in mind. I don't want you guys to have to put more time into this class than necessary. And the best way to do that is to take good notes during the class. Now, I'm very flexible. I mean, if you have something that all I require is while you're writing in your journal and I'm talking in the lab or going over what we're going to be doing, all you have to say is, can you wait a minute? And I'm more than willing to stop talking for a while. I want you to get it, and we can talk, and I can talk to the other students about something else while you're writing that. So it's not going to be pushed as hard as you think. I'm not going to push you hard, and don't worry about offending me by saying, can you stop and slow down? I don't mind that. I'm good with that, because the more you're writing, the more you're going to remember later. Okay, if you're going to miss the lab, in general, if you're going to miss on Thursday, show up on Tuesday. And if you're going to miss on Tuesday, you're going to have to show up on Thursday. It's not my desire at all to come in there another 3 hours during this week, just because you got up late or something like that. So keep that in mind. You're responsible for your own life, okay? And that's all. Are there any questions about these numbers?
So when's the first lab?
Next week. I think we'll do it next week so that we can go ahead and get it done. I'm sure at the end of the semester you guys don't want to be bothered with the lab. I'm looking out for your own interest here because I really don't want you to have to be doing that either. So we'll work together. It's a very interesting lab, I believe, and we'll have a lot of talk together. And, okay, what else? I'm going to talk as we go on. Where to go through. All right, has everybody looked at the journal? We still got that. So let's take a few minutes. I want everybody to look through it before I start talking about the journal. I've got things in here to fix it. I've got, I always put invoices. I've got invoices in here from stuff I ordered. I know who it came from, what date it came in, so that I have a good record of my research there. If I'm going to be working on a project myself specifically, I want as much detail as I can get about that project. It all makes good material for a thesis or a dissertation. And when you're ordering a product, sometimes you'll have 3 choices, but you want one specific one, and you write down, this is what I ordered, and this is where I got it from. And maybe later somebody asks you, well, what part did you use for that? Oh, I just pick up something. If you're doing something, you want to be able to redo what you did. If I ordered certain screws from a particular company, I want to go back to that company and order those screws again if I have to rebuild it or make a second copy of it. Quite often, what happens when people try to make copies of things is they don't use the same materials and they don't work as well. Screws are screws, and maybe not. So, what else? Talk about all the customers. quite often, along with this, during your research, you'll do papers for maybe Precision American Society for Precision Engineering or Optical Society, and you'll give a conference paper. And typically, it's not like a regular journal paper, but it contains information that's important. The kind of thing you would put in, you would get the information from your lab as in the lab journal, but also as a reference in your lab journal. You want to put that down because sometimes you'll include information in those papers that you forget in here, and it will be interesting for somebody else. And on the subatomic measure machine, I had to do some alignments of the lasers for cosine error. I don't know what that is right now, but it's a difficult alignment. And I decided, well, it's difficult. I'm just going to, for posterity, I'm going to stick it out there at a conference report. I didn't expect anybody to be interested in it at this time. I thought maybe in the next 5 years somebody will be interested in it. But as it turns out, I spent about an hour talking with a man from MIT in the space lab here about, he was doing some alignments, and the things that I was doing were of benefit to him. He said, oh, I didn't think about doing that. To save time. So, you don't know what little things that you do. One of the things I used was the rhombic prism. To actually, it's a device that takes light at one angle, and it will actually reflect it twice and come back.